Okay, so real quickly, let's establish the rules. Number one, the only source of damage output I'm allowed is the Dung Defender's crest. Now, that has two exceptions though. I will use my nail to kill my shade, because sometimes he'd spawn in the boss room, and that was a little bit too much spice for my tastes. And two, if I have to hit a boss to progress it through its phases with my nail, I will. Other than that, I guess that's all. Not very many rules, is there? Alright, let's move on and begin. The Defender's Crest is not the best charm in the game, especially when it comes to damage output, only doing 3 damage and lasting 1.1 seconds. So there's no real way to give myself just the Defender's Crest at the start of the game, and I couldn't find a mod for it either, so I kinda had to cheat and use the debug menu to give me every badge, and then only use the Defender's Crest from this point onward, alongside the compass, because I do get lost very, very easy. So this is more or less just to show what it would be like if the nail itself was replaced with a Dung Defender's Crest. Because I had to use a mod to give myself the charm from the very beginning, the challenge runs kind of moot as an actual challenge, as well as if there is any bosses that are invincible to the Dung Defender's Crest, I'm just going to skip them, because I want to see what all the bosses are like, and I know someone's going to come along and they're going to ruin the run. There's going to be just one boss who has nose plugs, and I'm not going to be ready for him, so... When it comes to the overworld, there isn't too much interesting to see, because as long as I'm not forced to complete a room, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to damage boost and dodge. So I do that until I get to the first mandatory room, which is the one that has the 3 aspids in it. In here, I could not figure out how to beat them. I died an embarrassing amount of times, so much so that the government took away my Hollow Knight license. But I found that if I could get them caught in the doorway, I could stink them just a little bit, enough to slowly but surely kill them every time I get them caught there. And when the 2 of them spawn, I take care of one of them getting caught and let the other one just spit on me as much as he wants, and after the first one's dead, I do the same to the next. Before we go fight the False Knight, I want to say something. And that is, masks are super important when it comes to a boss fight in this type of run. I don't have a nail, and because I don't have a nail, I can't get any way to heal until I get to the resting grounds. This wouldn't be such an issue, but the Dung Defender's Crest is actually pretty cruddy at damage output, meaning I have to be with these bosses for a while, and I have to survive for a long, long time. So, that being stated, let's go into the False Knight. When the False Knight jumps, we're going to have to pay very close attention. If it's an empty hop, we can line ourselves up with where he's going to land and get some free stink damage off on him. But if he's going to swing his, lumpy thing at us, we're going to want to move back about 5 tiles and wait. Unfortunately, you can't really beat the False Knight with just stink, because you have to hit him in the face when he falls. And I know you can skip him if you hit the wall thing, the kind of broken down bit of wall over there. If you hit that, you can escape, but the False Knight's kind of fun. I want to see what he would look like if I just beat him with stink. So, kind of brute force our way through it until he finally breaks the floor, and when he falls, he has no choice but to sit there and take it as we just smell bad right next to him. Overall, I guess I'd give him a 0 out of 10 on this hospital pain scale thing I saw. So, yeah. If you want to kill the Gru's mother real quick, they just kind of sleep through their own murder, and it's no issue at all. You're going to have to kind of reload the room and come back in if you want to open up the gate. I don't know why. I think it might be because, like, the fight doesn't technically start, so the fight can't technically end either. And if you want, you can go save Sly and move on. So, before we can get in the green path, there's this Elder Balder here who blocks your way, and you can't damage him with Dung Defender's Crest only, because he ducks down and covers his nose when you get too close to him. So, run over. Nah, I'm just kidding. Let's use the Spore Shroom and give us kind of like a long-range fart to get rid of him, just so we don't have to end the run there, yeah? Those in Green Path don't mind stench very much. In fact, there are fellow stink users here who are better at it than me. This doesn't really make much of a difference because I've been kind of damage boosting my way through anyway, so I'm just going to keep damage boosting, except now a little bit more careful. Real quickly too, in Green Path, there's one of the coolest things about the stink run, and that is the infinite geo-farming you can do with Zote. If you go into the room that has the King Vengfly eating Zote, if you go up and stink him, much like Gru's mother, the fight doesn't start, but he'll die, Zote will deatomize, and you get 65 geo. If you reload the room, you can do this as many times as you want, get 1,000,000 Zote bucks, and you can buy the Lumfly Lantern, any mask shard, or map piece you could want. Now, Zote's gonna die when you go into the Fungal Wastes and get the Mantis Hook, and that does stink a little bit, so I guess real early on, get as much geo as you can before you move on and get that Mantis Hook. Now on to the first Hornet fight. So, when it comes to the Defender's Crest, you have to have yourself pretty close to the boss in order to get the hitbox of the Cloud into them. Why this is rough with Hornet is she'll do these little quick steps into you, And these are very sudden and they come on quick without much warning. With Hornet, it's not so bad because she has very little health compared to some of the later bosses and it doesn't take that long to beat her, but we have to get in the habit of holding onto our masks because some of the later bosses, like the Dung Defender and the Watcher Knights, can take a lot longer time commitment, and you don't want to be in the habit of just throwing away masks for damage. The other thing to look out for is her double-decker mega-sized forehead. This thing is cheap, dude. She has one of the best forehead games in the entire meta. She absolutely can devastate if you aren't careful and you aren't looking out for that. She will jump into you and whack you with it. She'll jump back and whack you with it. That big old thing needs to be on constant surveillance. So the best times to get damage off on Hornet is when she does her lunging needle attack. Either grounded or in the air, if you move forward a little bit, she'll land right where your hitbox was and where your new hitbox is for your clouds. She also has two other moves. She has an empty hop where she jumps in the air and lands. That one's okay to get some damage off on her, but I find that any enemy that has a jump or a teleport can attack pretty quickly outside of using it. So if it's too far away, don't get greedy because you might just run into one of her attacks. And then she has Gossamer Swarm. There isn't really anything you can do with it. It's kind of just stand there and wait for her to finish because you're not going to really be able to punish that. It's too quick and it's too big of a hitbox. Overall, to beat Hornet with a Defender's Crest, it took me 2 tries and 13 minutes altogether. So now into the Fungal Wastes. There isn't really anything interesting down here. Nothing really of note until you get to the Mantis Village. Because the Mantises are so quick and kind of hard to get trapped with stink, it can be a little stupid to navigate. I had to go back to the bench quite a few times just to get through here. Don't forget that after you grab the Mantis Hook, Zote's gonna die and we're gonna lose our Infinite Geo. So make sure to get as much money as you need, go up, buy whatever you want, thank Sly, and head back down. But now I'm at the Mantis Lords. And with these fellas, you only get a few windows to attack them each time. This is when they do their Lance Dash or their Lance Drops. One thing I found is the hitbox on their legs and knees were super generous, and that actually allows us to beat them because we can get a little bit closer than you really look like you should with this Defender's Crest. So after they do their Lance Drop, you move just a little bit over. You kind of have to be worried about their knee, but not too much because I find that it's so generous you can kind of get really close in there and get some good DPS off. Then they have their Lance Dash. With that, you're just going to want to jump over them, let them get into the corner, and you position yourself right next to them and get off some good DPS. You also get some damage off when they're doing their projectile, but I found it to be more risk than reward, so do at your own risk. Overall, they took me about an hour and 15 minutes to beat them and 14 tries.
Ew.
Mid-level time for 16-star.
Pathetic.
That actually put me off.
Okay, next up's the City of Tears, and that is a great name for this place considering what I did while trying to beat this place. So, there's multiple forced rooms in the City of Tears. They're all easy, none of them are any issue. If you're just like me, you won't have any problem at all. The second one that I can think of that's really big to note is the one with the Soul Twister. That's an absolute nightmare. He kind of just messes with you and warps around, and as soon as you get into his hitbox, he'll teleport somewhere else, and the whole time, he fires off these smelly little spam orbs right at you. So, I kind of just got to get lucky. I threw myself at him so many times that I just was like, oh wow, he died. Huh, wonder where that happened. I don't know what I did right compared to the other runs. This one took me an even more embarrassing amount of times than the Aspid rooms were. If I thought I was getting my Hollow Knight license taken away last time, I'm getting my full Hollow Knight degree taken away now. There's also a mandatory room with a Soul Warrior, but this dude's a complete nerd compared to his friend the Soul Twister, so don't really worry about him. Just jump and stink him. Okay, so now we're on the Soul Master, and he is a hard guy to get hit with this stink. He constantly stays in the air, and the best damage we can get off on him is when we get lucky and he teleports real low to do his orb attack. When he does, if you get right next to him, the orb's going to hit the ground trying to spin around to hit you. You also can get some damage off on him when he's kind of doing his rotatey orb move. When he's doing that, if you try to time it so your cloud spawns in front of him, you can get a little, few ticks of damage off. This one's pretty risky though. I find myself getting hit doing it constantly because the clouds spawn so quickly, timing it feels impossible. He also has his dash move. You get some damage off during this too, but he does it pretty quickly and the damage isn't really so worth it. So if you're not in a good position, I wouldn't try it, especially since I've had a few times I got greedy when he was doing that dash move and he just kind of smushed me with his big fat body. So oddly, his second phase is way easier compared to his first phase. He just sits there and takes it a lot of the time, and then he has really easy to dodge orbs, and he has this slam move he spams a few times. The only real way that I thought that I could die is if I was an idiot and I got too close to his hitbox, and if I jumped too close into his hitbox, I deserve to die because I'm stupid. But maybe, just maybe, Team Cherry might smile down on you from the heavens and let you keep him dead, even though you don't deserve it. So overall, he took me 1 hour and 30 minutes. If you're wondering how many times he killed me, it was... about that many. Now we're in the big stinky sewer. There's one enemy that can kill you pretty good. He moved quick, and he didn't really mind you stinky. And so avoid him extra hard. Don't even try to damage boost or dodge him, just avoid him. The defender is a complete nightmare. There's very few times to stink him. He has so many fast hitboxes, and this fella is just impossible to keep still. What I noticed, though, is when he goes to do his dung toss and he's building the dung ball, his arms and the dung ball itself don't have a hitbox, so you get very, precious few seconds to get him to smell you. But if you're still around him when he goes to throw the dung ball back up, because he will smack you on the top of the head. When he does his burst move, you can kind of line yourself up in between the teeny tiny little dung balls and stand right next to him to get some good damage off, but he will probably roll away after he's done, so it's going to be pretty patient and time consuming to get good damage off on him. If the defender smiles down on you, he'll try and swim at you, and the whole time he's just face level with stink, and you just gotta walk in the direction he's swimming in, and you'll get the best damage you can off on him during this move. Because of how unpredictable his landings are, I found it really hard to trap him in the corner too. I tried to trap him in the corner like I would with most bosses or enemies, but he is not really the type to stay in the corner too long. He'll dig, he'll smack you, he'll jump out, he doesn't really mind. So I just thought that kind of more tortoise than hare this time. Very patiently and slowly I fought him. Each attempt taking 30, 40, 50 minutes just to get him down. So much so that in the run I actually killed him, I thought maybe they put something in the game that made him invincible to the defender's crest. I was like, maybe it's because he smells, it doesn't hurt him. No, the whole time I was damaging him, it's just a complete war of attrition against this guy. So the Dung Defender was by far the worst part of this entire run. Until now I've been adding up the time it takes me to beat the boss by cutting out what time it took me to get to them. But when I was trying to do it to the Defender, there was so much footage of fun I had that I kind of stopped doing it because it was taking me days to edit it out. So I'm just going to stop doing that from now on and do a full time of what all the time it took me to beat him all together, including getting to the boss. So he took... oh my goodness, 71 tries and 1 or 2 or maybe 6.5 hours to beat. So I went up to the Crystal Peak just because I wanted to see what it'd be like to do with just the Defender's Crest, as well as I want to go get that cool tattoo from Kingdom's Edge, and I can't do that without the Crystal Heart. I fought the Crystal Guardian, and the dude isn't really that much. I just did normal Crystal Guardian strats, jumped over him, let him smell me. Not really that hard. He took me 1 try and 2 minutes to beat, because, you know, I think that the Dung Destroyer God just made me better at the game. I don't think a Crystal Guardian could ever compare. Now on to the Broken Vessel. He is one of the coolest looking bosses in the game, unrelated. So while getting to him, you have to avoid the Maulurks. The ones in the ground aren't that hard to kill, you just can stand next to him and do some very fast-paced, clever dodging. But the ones on the roof, you kind of have to be graceful and dodge through the little orange pellets they spit out, or you can just damage boost. It doesn't matter. I damage boost because the bench is right next to where you get out anyway, so the Broken Vessel isn't that bad at all. Us stink boys get to eat good tonight because his little orange friends he summons die instantly at one sniff of us, and with the spore that you could have, you don't really have to move because the cloud will kill them instantly. That's why I see a lot of people do, if they try this boss and they know the trick, they'll do the Defender's Crest plus the spore, because if you have just the Defender's Crest, they can still hit you if they get too close to your hitbox. So I'd recommend with these guys, take a little step back and have them fly into the stink and kill them by doing that. Don't just stand there and hope the stink will take care of him, because they can get into the hitbox real easy. So the Broken Vessel will dash at you, and you can either go under him or above him. And when he does, if you just stand next to him, you can get some good DPS off on him. But you have to look out for his flail move. He does the same pose each time he goes to do his flail, so just take a few steps back when you notice it and wait for him to finish. He also has a slam move where he slams into the ground and spawns some orbs. With this, you can just dodge and weave your way through the orbs and stand next to him. Really, the biggest threat with him is looking out for his flail move. Other than that, he's not too hard at all. Overall, being one of the more gentle bosses of the Dung Defender's Crest only run, he's not so bad. And in fact, I'd actually say he's the last boss of this run you get to do that doesn't come with any mental health issues from attempting. So say goodbye to Broken Vessel, and we're going to be moving on to Kingdom's Edge, which is much worse. From Broken Vessel... I died about that many times. Kingdom Edge is straight up goofy. The enemies here feel like they never die from smell, especially the little teeny tiny hoppin' fellas, and it takes 1,000 years to kill them, and there's these ultimate aspids that will hunt you down to the ends of the earth to kill you. I normally would damage boost and dodge, but the Kingdom Edge forced me to use my brain to actually escape through a lot of these situations and move really, really quickly to load and unload the enemies to get them away from me. Okay, so now we're at Hornet 2, and she is a lot of the same, but much, 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 much worse. She's way quicker and way more spastic in how she moves. You're going to do the same thing with a lunge, except now wait in the corner of the room and let her lunge into you, either jumping over her or going under her if the angle kind of sets up for that better, and waiting directly next to her. If you keep her trapped in the corner, she won't do her dodge, or she won't kind of jump back away from the Stink's hitbox, and you can get better damage off on her than you normally would be able to. Otherwise, this would take much longer to beat her. One thing to do is to try and stay on the ground as much as possible. Hornet controls the air, and she will jump and smack into you, or just take care of you with her lunge attack if you don't have the ability to dodge, and you're out of options, just stuck in the air in the corner. So what I'd recommend is staying on the ground as much as possible, and not moving as much as possible. Don't try to run up to her, it just makes it way harder. Instead, be patient and stick to your corner. In her second phase, she summons these spiked balls. I wanted to see if I could do it without having to hit the spiked balls with my nail, and no, that was not possible. So I would hit them and get them all to spawn on one half of the arena, and then I would use the other half of the arena specifically. It kind of stunk because I limited my movement and my dodging by a lot. At least half of the arena was now off limits. But it wasn't so bad because I was kind of just standing around the entire time anyway. With Hornet, one of the biggest things to look out for is just spacing out. I would be thinking about some random garbage and have to get reminded to pay attention when she hits me. This took an unbelievable burden of time on me. The amount of time I had to pay attention to this fight was just ridiculous. Way longer than what my brain is normally capable of. Overall, she took me 25 tries and about 5 hours of attempts. I got the cool tattoo because I wanted the shade cloak. Why? Because I knew I was going to need it against the Watcher Knights. These fellas are relentless, they got each other's backs. If you're damaging one, the other will come in and get you. So the first thing to do is I broke the chandelier, because I actually didn't know you could do that. I found out by looking up ways to make these guys easier, because they were such a nightmare trying to do the Defender's Crest only. So I break the chandelier and I head on in. Now, I would think these guys would be impossible normally, but there's a little function in Hollow Knight that if you look in the top left corner, there's a cup. And you can fill this cup up with milk by beating the milk out of enemies and drinking it to heal your bones. I can't do that because I'm not using the nail, but in the place called the Resting Grounds, you can get an item that's called the Lactose Lance. This lets you get milk out of the enemy without technically damaging them, allowing me to heal while fighting the Watcher Knights. This makes it so even if I get hit damaging them, or even if one of them comes in and gets the other ones back when I'm trying to set up to get damage, I can still just keep getting the cloud into their hitbox and not worry about what health I'm losing. At least not so much. So the Watcher Knights, especially since I'm not using any of their charms, kind of don't allow too many opportunities to get hit with Lactose Lance. So I would do it when they land or jump with a bouncing roll. This gives you some very few precious seconds to set up and get out one lance swing for one heal. I also found that if you do it really quickly, you can get through them when they're swinging their nail and get behind them and also get some milk. This was also partially luck dependent because they could immediately hit you anyway and take away the mask you just earned back, or they could bounce away and give you more of a chance to heal. One thing to keep in mind is you don't want to try to line yourself up when they're doing their roll move. They'll bounce off the wall in a random amount of distance and they'll park themselves exactly where you're going to land. And with how precious health is, even though I'm heal scumming, I need to hold on to that health as best as I can anyway. So you don't really want to play with that. I tried to find a way to do this that looked less sloppy, and tried to find a way to make it look cooler, but that's the best I could come up with. For some reason, not many people online are doing stink runs, so there isn't really many methods to do this. Overall, the Watcher Knights took me 76 tries and 8 hours altogether to beat. Oh my goodness. Wow. Next up's Fog Canyon, which can be a little bit tricky because your stinkiness caused the jellyfish to die instantly, and they're going to mess you up 2 masks of damage. You could use the Lactose Lance to try and get some milk out of him, but the hitbox of Lactose Lance and the hitbox of the Dung Defender's Crest kind of sometimes interlap a bit hard to space out, and I'd find myself killing even more jellyfish trying to heal, so I'd recommend just going back to the bench if you get hit. Okay, so now we're on the fight with Umu, and he's invincible. Run over. But what if I did my super special secret move on him? Okay, so I'm going to be doing my special move. Every Hollow Knight player knows how to do this. Okay, first thing we're going to have to do is spawn Umu here, and oh my goodness, good dodge. He almost got me. Wait up here, and we're going to lead him down here into the middle platform, because that platform's usually pretty safe. Going to jump over, and ooh, very good dodge. Very, very nice. See, there we go. That platform's usually safe, I find. Move out of the way just in time, and I'm going to keep doing some quick and clever dodges around Umu until Quirrell shows up. Now that Quirrell's here, we're going to let him hit him, and then we're going to do that. Pretty hard to pull off. There we go. There we go. See, every Hollow Knight player knows how to do that. You know what that was. Don't worry about that. That was normal. That was normal in-game stuff, and I'm not cheating at all. Okay, and once Quirrell spawns again, you can hit him with our special move, and oh, there we go. That was nice. Clean. All right. Now with Umu out of the way, we can go beat Hera and fight Hollow Knight. Okay, so real quickly, I just want to say that I got rid of my Shade Cloak for Hollow Knight because I thought it made him a bit too easy, and I didn't die 5 million times fighting him, so I thought, hey, let's get rid of the Shade Cloak and see if I can squeeze a few more deaths out of this. So with Hollow Knight, I find that as long as you do a full hop when he's doing his sword swing, you can generally clear over him and get around his back. But look out, because he has a quadruple decker, mega-sized ultra forehead of destruction. If you are not in the ground after you went over him, and you are in the air too long, and you aren't too, if you aren't far enough away, he's going to swing that big old thing around, and he's going to hit you with it. It is the hardest thing in this entire fight to dodge. The other thing that can be a little bit rough is the back end of his swing with his backhand, but as long as you're doing a full hop, you should clear that. Another thing to look out for is his pelvis pulverizer attack. He'll jump in the air and land on you with his targeted pelvis strike, and if you keep moving forward, he knows exactly where you're going, he's going to land on you, so just really quickly fade back, let him land, and try to get some stink off on him. He also has his lunge move where he lunges forward with his nail. This one, just jump over him like you do with every boss with a lunge move and land behind him for that stink. With his teleport move, I find it best not to be greedy, let him teleport and attack, because he can attack pretty much instantly outside of that teleport. If you do try to run over, get some greedy damage off on him, it's just going to be more risk than it's reward, so don't do that either if you can avoid it. So I was dealing with this guy for like an hour, and he was not dying, and I was like, maybe he's invincible. But then I was like, no, you checked the Dung Defender, and he wasn't invincible, so he isn't either. So I looked in the debug menu after a while, and it turns out he is invincible. Once you get him down to 0, he just doesn't die, and you have to whack him a few times to regress him in phases. So just for the sake of that, I did it. Kind of stinks, but after that, he's really easy. He just gotta look out for his balloon move, and when he slips, you're just gonna stand there and let him breathe in your stink, absorb his stink into you, and they get sealed in an airtight container so no one else is forced to take a whiff of you ever again. Overall, Hollow Knight took me 7 hours to beat and 51 tries. Thank you very much for watching, and I encourage anybody who saw this video and thinks a stink run would be interesting to give it a try. It's an absolute nightmare, and I would love to see people suffer the way I did.